What's going on, you guys? It's Resto, and in today's video, we're going to be going over the 19 Twink Shaman. In this video, we're going to be going over the gear, the best in slot options, as well as the alternatives until you're able to obtain those best in slots. Also going to be going over the talents, the typical builds that you guys will be using throughout your battleground experiences, and I'm also going to be going over some tips and tricks to kind of help you guys just make your gameplay a little bit smoother and just to help you guys out in general. But without further ado, let's get right into this guide. Alright guys, welcome back to the shamarino in the 19 Twink bracket. I just want to start off saying with this tune right here is an absolute beast in terms of being a hybrid. Now what I mean by that is a shaman can be an FC, healer, and DPS. Doesn't have to be just one single thing. It can be literally everything, just like a druid. I feel like if druid didn't have bear form and all the other travel forms that it had alone to be able to be a druid and the utility with it, shamans would be 100% dominating the FC aspect of Warsong Gulch. They are great FCs just like druids. They both can do very good things and provide a lot of benefits in their own ways. However, I'm going to go over the difference of shaman in terms of FCing, healing, and DPS. Now there's different routes that you guys can take as well in terms of gear sets and options that you can take, just like, you know, with the staff and spirit. So I'm going to go over all of that. What I will say though, there are a few things I want to dive into on the DPS side of things, and that is professions. So usually with professions, I'm not really going over, I've noticed in previous videos, but with this one, I really want to kind of key target this because herbalism is always going to be the main profession that you guys are going to be going with on every single twink that you make. It's just like a lucky fishing hat and the PvP ring and trinket. You cannot pass up a 720 healing hot that goes on you, and it cannot be dispelled. Like, this thing is amazing. It gets you out of so many scenarios. It gets you, you know, back to full if you need to be full. You know, if you're out of mana, you got like a nice chunk of health being able to be provided for you. And then the best thing on top of all of this, it's only a 3-minute cooldown. It's not like it's a 10-minute cooldown, a 20-minute cooldown. It's a 3-minute cooldown. That is not bad at all. With that being said though, the secondary profession that you can go with, I have mining on this because if I were to have a shaman, I would want to FC. With that being said, I want stamina. Now, this is where I say I want to dive into the DPS aspect of things because there's also different talents that you can run at the end. I'll go over at the end of this video. But if you're going to solely be healing and DPSing and not even caring about FCing, which is totally fine, there's nothing wrong with that whatsoever. Instead of going with mining, go with crit. And the crit is going to come from skinning. Now, that is what I would recommend, because why take a stamina boost when all you're focusing on is just spell output? You know, you're not focused on kiting, you're not focusing on survivability, you're focusing on the DPS or healing output. Might as well add some crit to that. That's just my take on that. Go ahead and get skinning if you don't care about FCing. If you don't want to get involved with that, you're not too experienced, whatever the case is, go with skinning, get the crit instead of the 7th stamina. Now, if you find yourself dying a lot, I mean, go with mining, do as you please. I will say though, if you go one route, might as well stick to that route because it's a pain in the ass to kind of turn it around and go and get another profession, level it all the way up and go through that struggle again. Leveling professions isn't as easy as it is in later expansions as it is in Wrath of the Lich King, so just take that in consideration when you guys are going for your decision. That's just my take on, in my opinion, on the route that you guys should follow depending on your playstyle. But diving into the gear, we're looking at the Horde's version of DPS. So obviously starting off with the lucky fishing hat, you guys are going to get this every Sunday at 4 p.m. Server time, and you're just going to go to Stranglethorn Val, hop on the beach or wherever you guys want to go. I personally go on the beach. I don't really have a specific spot that I go to. Like I mentioned in every video, I've gotten 2 lucky fishing hats same day on 2 different tunes. Like, it's very possible to get this stuff. It can be a positive drop rate. It's all depending on your guys' RNG. If you're gifted that day, grats. If not, well, you got next week and the week after that. You know, I've heard stories of people taking months to get theirs, weeks to get theirs, some take days, and then you got me, same day. It really just depends on you. Moving on to the neck, we got the PvP neck. Like I say all the time, as long as you have a Warsong Gulch weekend, you can get both the ring and the neck in the same game, depending on how well that game is played out. If you guys are focusing on objectives, like I tell everybody all the time, winning games gives you more honor than farming a graveyard. Farming the graveyard not only lowers morale, it takes away from the fun from the other team, prevents them from queuing, and now you're sitting in a longer queue. But if you win games, you're going through quicker, you get to queue another, and guess what? You get to win another game on top of that. You're getting more honor if you win games and actually follow the objectives rather than farming a graveyard. You gain nothing from it. There's nothing that you can really gain from it. People think it's more honor. It's actually proven that you get more honor from a win doing objectives. So take that as you will. But that's pretty much the only neck that you guys are really going to get. In terms of the shoulders, there are really no other option other than these. This is going to be the best option possible just because it gives you some MP5 on top of it, guys. It's huge. So go ahead and get the Mystical Pauldron of the Elements. It's one of the heirloom shoulders that you guys can get super easy. Moving on to the neck, you get the Spider Silk Drape. This is pretty much like the caster's go-to cloak, mainly because of the hit and spell, guys. This is a very huge cloak to get. And just like all the other cloaks that you want to do, and I have 70 armor here, this is a great default enchant. However, I recommend getting multiple of these cloaks, putting on different types of enchants, and what I mean by that is instead of 70 armor, you can plop on an all resistance. Instead of all resistance, you can put a shadow resistance as well. And this all depends on the scenario within your game. Now, what that means is you're not always going to have a full team of melee. You know, you might have a lot of warlocks, so you're going to put on shadow resistance, or a lot of priests and warlocks that are DPS, and they're going to put on a lot of dots on you. You're going to want that shadow resistance. Maybe you have a variety of different casters that are going to have, you know, mages, whatever the case is, so you're going to put all resistance on it. You know, it really just depends on the scenario, what you're going for. Obviously armor, if it's a lot more melee than there is casters. If there's one caster, I mean, it's not the end of the world. Just put on 70 armor, or if you're able to get the swap off of the shadow resistance or all resistance in the meantime before the encounter even starts, you can go ahead and do that as well, depending on how high speed you are. Moving on to the chest, we got the Inferno Robe. This is once again one of the go-to. There's literally nothing else that compares to this. It is absolutely a beast of a chest piece. The Inferno Robe, you're going to put 150 health on this. This is the only chest that you can do that with, so that is why it is nice to take advantage of this big health pot. Moving on to the bracers is the Crystalline Cuffs. Go ahead and throw 15 spell power on this. The goal is to optimize your mana as well as spell power to give you guys the most damage output possible. But moving on to the gloves, or the Jute Braid gloves, you don't have to get Jute Braid gloves. You can also get the Serpent gloves. They are literally the same gloves, guys, but if you're like me and you like to be different, you like unique things on your Twink, go ahead and grab these. These aren't hard to get. I have a video on it that you guys can go watch. And how to obtain this. It's the same quest line as the Trailblazer boots. They both offer the same thing. It's either you get one or the other. Obviously casters are going to choose this because they don't need leather boots. So if you guys need some guidance on how to do that, I did make a video on this. Moving on to the belt, you're going to go with the Girdle of the Blind Watcher. It's really the only go-to belt, guys. There's really no other belt that you'd want to go for. It's just an amazing amount of stamina and intellect that you can get from an item. There's really nothing else that could compare to this. So this is obviously going to be your go-to for the shamans. Moving on to the pants, you're going to go with the Dark Weave Breeches. It's 4 stamina, 7 intellect. It's mainly for the intellect guys. On top of it, it's a boa, so you can throw on a 24 armor instead of a 16 armor. So that's huge. For that armor piece, I recommend sending it to one of your tunes that are a higher level. As long as they're at level 20 or and above, they can go ahead and apply this enchant to the pants before they are equipped. Send them back to your Twink and then put them on. If you guys don't, for whatever reason, want to do that, you can have a friend that's nearby, or you can have somebody random that's right in front of you that are willing to do it. You can do that as well. I just do it with myself, send it to my own tunes. That way I'm not, you know, focusing on worrying about any errors that are going to happen in the process. I'm in full control, and if something happens, it's on me, not somebody else. So that's just my recommendation when going with that. Moving on to the boots, we got the Spider Silk boots. We're going to throw 7 stamina on this. The reason why we're not going to do minor speed, in my opinion, Shamans aren't really going to be running around a lot. You guys are going to be utilizing your ghost form a lot. So with that being said, 7 stamina is my go-to. Might as well throw on some stamina to your health pool rather than kind of trying to run around faster. There's not really a big need for that, unless you're obviously going to FC. Then you'd swap it up and change it there. But if you're just normally running around healing DPS, there's no need for it. Moving on to the rings, you're going to move with the PvP ring. Like I said, with the neck, you guys can get this within a same game depending on how well the game goes. Otherwise, within 2 to 3 games, guys, you guys should have your ring and neck, no problem. There's really nothing to this, nothing too complex and whatnot. And moving on to the ring, we're looking at the lavishly jeweled ring. The main point of this ring is not only the intellect, but the hit rating. The hit rating is going to help land the spill, guys, so you guys don't miss. So that's why this is a really good ring to go for. If you guys don't want to use this ring, you can throw on a metal ring and just put on some stamina if you want some stamina on it. I don't really recommend that. I'd recommend going with this. This is honestly your best option in terms of a ring duo. Your trinkets are always going to be the same. Go with the heirloom trinket. Give yourself that resilience. That 6 resil does go a long way. And then the AGM, of course, for the absorb shield. Now, if you aren't able to get an AGM because there's people out there who don't really need it, they just want to go for an achievement, blows my mind, but it is what it is. Go ahead and throw on the heirloom trinkets as well, whether it's a haste or a spell power. I recommend putting on the spell power one. You're going to want to boost up the magnitudes of your spells, so that's also a good route to go with. Plus it gives you some mana regeneration as well after every kill. So it's a very nice trinket to have if you can't get yourself an AGM. Moving on to the weapons and shields. Now this is where it can get a little different. So with the go-to, you're going to want to run the Devout Hour Stone for the stamina and intellect, and you're going to throw on a 22 intellect on top of that. Very nice weapon to have, very ideal for a caster. So definitely recommend this. And then for the Horde, you guys are going to rock the Dead Skull Shield, and you're going to throw 7 stamina on this. A very beautiful shield, nice armor, but it's mainly for the stamina, guys. It's going to boost up your health by a lot. It's a very beneficial. This is one thing that the Horde has that the Alliance doesn't, and it's very nice to be able to equip. So with that being said, the Alliance, very similar items. But there's a few swap arounds. Obviously, they don't have a Dead Skull Shield, so they're gonna run the Arctic Buckler and just throw 7 stamina on top of it there. The Arctic Buckler is a very nice shield to have. When it comes down to just overall, general shields, it's just a beautiful shield to have, a must-have in my opinion. Going on to the chest, obviously the Inferno Robe is not on the Alliance side, so you guys are going to run the Heirloom chest, throw on +4 stats on this, just as good. You also get a little bit of MP5 on there, so you're kind of even out the playing field a little bit, because Inferno Robe doesn't have all of that. All they have is just pure spell power on that, but you guys get the whole 9 yards with the Mystic Vest of the Elements. But moving on to the gloves is the Serpent's Gloves. These are literally, like I said before, the same exact gloves as the Juke Break gloves. It just doesn't look different and unique. That is the only difference between it. Other than that, all the other items are pretty much the same, guys. Obviously, you're going to run your own PvP trinket and ring that are going to be designated to your faction. So, I mean, that's really the only difference. Everything else is honestly the same. The only difference is just changing up, the faction's designated items. So that's a DPS set. Now, this is an MP5 set. Now, this is really nice to kind of regenerate mana or just always have mana kind of around. You don't really go as easily, if that makes sense. So, I mean, the only really thing you're changing here is you're keeping these items, right? But the only thing that's really changing is, like, for the shield, for example, you're going to throw on some intellect so you have max intel, and then you're going to throw on an MP5 enchant, vitality. And then for the bracers, you're going to rock the same bracers, but you're just going to throw on an MP5 enchant on here as well. But that's pretty much all that's going on here. You got the shoulders and the chest right here to kind of go onto that MP5. You guys are getting so much MP5 here per second, so you guys really shouldn't run out of mana as easily. But it's pretty similar to the DPS build, but it's not so much going to give you the most output because you are taking away some spell power to give yourself an MP5 build, if that makes sense. So there is that. There is a little bit of a sacrifice, but there's also reward at the same time. So do as we will with that. Same thing with the Alliance. The only thing that you're going to change that's going to be different from the Horde is obviously we don't have a Seal of Rin. Alliance does. You guys are going to rock the Seal of Rin on this because it does give you Spirit. It is nice to have to kind of help with regeneration as well. So that's something that you guys can rock. But everything else is normally the same. You guys are going to rock the same stuff. The only thing that's changing really is the ring. So with that being said, now if you guys want to learn how to FC, we do have an FC build. So the only thing that's going to be changing here really is just the enchants and one piece of the gear, and actually 2 pieces, maybe 3. Okay, quite a bit. So we got the regular wristbands of the Eagle. 3 out of 3 you're going to rock with this, throw on some 15 spell power. Now you're not rolling with the 9 stamina because as a shaman being an FC, you want to have that versatile kind of build going around, right? You want to have the stamina, yes, but you also want to be able to have enough spell power within your build to kind of keep you up, to kind of make sure that you can be a solo individual in terms of carrying a flag, because not all the time you're going to have an FC with you. So what's nice being able to kite around and having this spell power is you're able to go around and be able to heal yourself, do damage when needed, etc. That's what's nice about the Shaman. That's why I said if Druid honestly didn't have all these forms and the utility that it had, I really feel like Shaman would dominate the FC playing field because of this, the abilities that they're able to provide to the game. It's huge. With the gloves, you guys are going to rock the scouting gloves of the Eagle. Similar to the Druid, you're going to throw on the 16 spell power. Still have the same belt. The only difference between the pants is you're going to rock the scouting trousers of the Eagle because of the stamina. Throw on a 24 armor enchant on this as well. And then like I said before, instead of 7 stamina on your boots, you're going to get another spider silk boot and throw on minor speed. That way you guys are able to navigate the playing field as fast as possible and as swiftly as possible. But other than that, that's pretty much all there is to it. Keeping everything the same, honestly. If you really want, you could rock double AGMs depending on the scenario. If your trinket's on CD, you can rock double AGM, vice versa. There's many different things you can kind of swap out if you really wanted to. But if you're running the MP5 build, by the way, something that you could do is swap out this weapon and give yourself a Blessed Hammer of Grace, or even use one of the Devout Aurastone Hammers. I mean, completely up to you and what you want to do. I wouldn't recommend going with the Aurastone. The reason why I would rock with the Hammer of Grace because it also provides another type of MP5, but if you throw a Spirit on there, that's ultimately going to increase that mana regeneration as well as your health generation as well. So you can really optimize with the Shaman on an MP5 build to its fully extent. Same thing, if you want, you can throw on Vitality on one of these trinkets as well, even with the gold-plated buckler. I do know with the Alliance FC is going to rock the gold-plated buckler just because it's 5 stamina. But if you guys don't want to do that, you could just rock out one of these, the 4 intellect. You know, it really just depends on what you want to prioritize. But otherwise, the FC for the Alliance, that's the only thing that's really going to be changing for the Alliance is the gold-plated buckler. One thing that I want to point out, you could rock the Seal of Sylvanas for the instead of the lavishly jeweled ring. The only thing that you're going to be sacrificing is hit and your intellect. So it really depends whether or not you want to go extra stamina and you want to push past that 1500 threshold. Be in mind that a lot of this mana that you're seeing on the top left and the health as well, I am rocking no talents right now. So ultimately there are talents that will increase your mana pool. So if you don't want a lot of mana, right, you could sacrifice 60 of that and put it in with 80 of your health points with the Seal of Sylvanas. So It really just depends on what you want to do. Personally, what I would do is stick with the mana pool. As a shaman, you are going to be utilizing a lot of your spells, so you are going to need a bigger health pool than what a druid would normally be able to use. So you do want some sort of playing around with your mana pool. So that's just what I would recommend, is utilizing this. But if you guys are okay, don't really see yourself using a lot of mana down the road, you're finding yourself kind of halfway or full at most times, yeah, go ahead, swap out Still Sylvanas and throw this in. That is something that you could do as well. But back to the Alliance FC, obviously that doesn't exist, so you guys are just going to rock this. Obviously swap out the faction items with the items that you would be using on your faction, like the Alliance version of PvP and the heirloom trinket. Everything else normally the same, nothing's changing. Everything is going to be different and in some sort of way in terms of what you're doing on that faction. So what I mean by that is, obviously there's no Inferno Robe, so you're going to use a Mystical Vest of Elements. With the Mystical Vest of Elements, same thing with the Horde FC. It's going to have 100 health on it, so you just want to make sure you plop that on there instead of the 4 stats, because you want to prioritize health over mana. Anytime you're being an FC, you got to think of yourself being like a raid boss, right? More health you have, the more well-rounded you are, the harder it is going to be to kill you, right? If you have more armor, if you have more health, you know, it's going to take a lot more hits for you to go down. But I know in later inspections it's kind of different, because if you have a lot of health, I know there was at one point, I think it was Cataclysm or Warlords of Draenor, one of the two, where if you had like 5,000-6,000 health, you were just full stam stacking, but you went down pretty quick, just because you didn't have a lot of armor. You're rocking, you know, just strictly stamina. So there are some pros and cons to it, but ultimately in Wrath of the Lich King, you want to be a raid boss. You want that stamina because of the way the stats are distributed on the loot. It's a little bit different. But ultimately, that is a little bit different builds in terms of, you know, what you can do with a Shaman Twink. There are a few other things that you can do, but I just want to stick with the basics. This is honestly, you know, what you should really go for. There's other experimenting things that you can do, like the bronze ring that you can utilize on here if you want to go for a pure DPS build. I personally don't see a point in that. I know I've seen some people rock some weird stuff, but they're a very, very, very squishy person because they're rocking a pure glass cannon build. I don't recommend that, for some classes at least. For some, I don't recommend. But ultimately, this is your Shaman build, guys. This is pretty much all the gear and the professions that I would go to. So let's dive into the talents. Alright, so the talents, like I said before, there is some playing around that you can do, but ultimately this is your go-to build for a Shaman. You want to put 2 into Earth's Grasp, you want to put 3 into Astro Knowledge to boost your intellect a little bit, and then you want to put 2 into Improved Ghost Wolf. Pretty much makes it insta-cast, and then you want your Improved Healing Wave, 3 into that as well. Now, what I mean by there's some playing around that you can do, so there are some builds that I've done on private servers where you take all of this out, you put all of your points into Astro Knowledge and all of your points into Concussion. So what this is going to do is just like the Lightning Bolt build, I guess you can call it. You put Lightning Bolt on, and then what you can do is you can rock out the Lightning Bolt instead of the Stoneclaw Totem. So that's like a go-to thing that you guys can utilize. So it increases your the damage dealt by the Lightning Bolt by 4%, and this ultimately increases the damage done by your Lightning Bolt by another 5%. So that's a 9% increase on Lightning Bolt, and then you can have a 10% increase on your intellect and just absolute pump. And that's what I mean by, if you're gonna go with the crit on your skinning, that crit kind of adds towards this. So if you think about it, I mean, that's a lot of damage that you guys can be outputting, and some really strong lightning bolts that you guys can be pumping out as a pure DPS Shaman. It is a route that you guys can follow through with. Completely up to you if you guys don't want to do that though. Another route you can take, even for healers, is you can take all the points out from this, stay with this, and even go all the way into Improved Healing Wave. I mean, there's a lot of different ways you can do that. You can even stay and do this. So instead of having 2 in Ghost Wolf, right, you take these 2 out, you can put one into here and one into here. That way you can kind of spread them out, or you can even take one out of here and put all into here. So that way you're getting the Earth's Grasp, you're still getting a little bit of improved healing and still a bit of Astral Knowledge, or even vice versa. Take the two out of there and put into here if you want to prioritize your healing wave. I mean, it's really up to you on how you want to kind of distribute the talent points, but those are a few different ideas that you can do. Other than the generic build, what you're looking at is this. This is like the go-to Shaman build. A lot of people like to run Glyph of the Stoneclaw. So what this is doing, it's practically putting a shield on you, and it's also protecting the Stoneclaw totem itself. This is a go-to totem, or a go-to glyph for a lot of people. This is typically what I run as an overall Shaman. If you're not going to be an FC, like I said, you can rock this as a pure DPS. Or if you're going to run just healers, what you can run as well is Glyph of the Healing Wave. So this is your healing wave, also heals you for 20% of the healing effect when you heal someone else. So this is huge. Think of this like the Paladin Light's Hope. I believe that's what it's called. That pretty much gives you a little bit of health as you heal somebody else. So this glyph is really nice for healers. If you're trying to be just a healer, this is a really good glyph. If you're trying to be just a DPS, this is a really good glyph. If you're just trying to be a little bit of everything. Obviously you can't have both, but you can kind of swap out if you want to do a lot of gold spending or gold spending on making these glyphs constantly. I mean, you can also do that. No wrong with that. But if you just want to have a one set in stone glyph, I mean, these are three options that you can take. You can either be all the above, a hybrid, DPS, or you can be a healer. So it really is up to you on what route that you guys want to take with your Shaman. The minor glyph is Glyph of the Ghost Wolf. This is really the only minor glyph that you guys should be using. The only one that you can use. Ultimately, but this heals you as you're in Ghost Wolf. That is huge. The fact that you're getting passive healing, and it is 1%, but 1% goes a long way every 5 seconds as you're running around the map, as you're kiting as an FC, whatever you're doing. Being in Ghost Wolf is just huge because it's constantly healing you. Plus, it's a 30% increase on your speed over, I think it's 25 or 20% as a druid, or no, I think it's 40%. Or no, I think so. I think it's 40%, yes. But I know the Ghost Wolf is a 30% increase. So this is something that's huge that you guys can utilize and be able to passively heal yourself in the battlefield. But other than that, I mean, that's honestly all there really is to a Shaman in terms of talents. You guys do get to have a little bit of fun with choosing the routes that you can take with your Shaman. Like I said, it all depends on the path that you want to do. But other than that, that is it. If there is a class that you guys would like to see, let me know down below. I'll go ahead and pick someone random, or maybe the first person, whatever I'm feeling that day, and I can go ahead and prioritize that upload first. I am doing all of the classes, so if you guys don't want to wait for that specific class, go ahead and let me know down below what you guys want to do or what you want to see. But other than that, it's been Resto, guys. See you guys next time.